Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If I don't miss my guests, we have folks listening in from pretty much all around North America and perhaps several other countries. And it's very nice to have all of you with us tonight. We're going to be doing a special program tonight that'll tell you some things maybe you haven't had a chance to hear about. That's a little bit more of our history, what makes Immunotech tick, and who are the people behind the scenes that were involved with it. So tonight, it's a very special program. And of course, it is called the Immunotech, Discover Immunotech program. But it'll be a little bit different. First of all, my name is James Spencer, and I'm a platinum consultant with the company. I've been with them for over 25 years. I'm in my 26th year with the company. So I've had an occasion to observe things from close to the very beginning. Now, because we're going to discuss some natural products tonight, we always do this disclaimer. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. This presentation is not intended to provide diagnosis, treatment, or medical advice. Products, services, information, and other content provided in this presentation, including information that may be provided in this presentation directly or by linking to third-party websites, are provided for information purposes only. Please consult with a physician or other healthcare professionals regarding any medical or health-related diagnosis or treatment options. We'll also read the income disclaimer statement, although we won't go too much into that tonight. The result and income examples shown in this content are meant as an illustration. They're designed to give you an idea of what's possible. Individual results may vary. Immunotech does not guarantee that anyone will make any specific amount of money. Success in any business requires leadership, skills, commitment, and dedication, and will be dependent on your effort. Immunotech's IDS is designed to convey truthful, timely, and comprehensive information regarding the income that an Immunotech independent consultant might potentially earn. And the IDS may be found on the legal tab on www.immunotech.com. So as always, we get started talking about our breakthrough flagship product, that is, the amazing scientific breakthrough that allowed us to really have access to a glutathione precursor that is significantly better than anything else you'll find. Now, glutathione is also known by its chemical name GSH. We now know it to be a substance that is in every cell of your body, and it's considered one of your most powerful protectors. Interestingly, it was first discovered way back in 1888 by a Frenchman, J. de Ray-Pihati. He was experimenting with extracts of yeast and animal tissues, and at first he thought it was a dipeptide consisting of cysteine and glutamate. So mistakenly, he gave it a name, phylothione, which means love and sulfur in Greek. And it was close to 40 years later, a little over, that a scientist by the name of Hopkins discovered that there was a third component, which made it a tripeptide. And that was when it was understood that cysteine, glutamate, and glycine were all components of now what came to be known as glutathione. Well, could have been the end of the story, but it was another 60 years later that someone figured out how to implement this amazing discovery and found a practical modality that could help the health of both animals and humans. And it's a fascinating story. I'm going to give you just an overview of it. We can't not discuss this young man who was born July 19th, 1928, Gustavo Bunos. He's probably about 10 or 11 years old in this picture. But ironically, he was born the same year that penicillin was discovered. Now, Gustavo was raised during a very tumultuous time period. Uh, he was born in Piedmont, Italy, and as he grew up, Mussolini was the dictator in Italy. He went to the Collegio Valdez, which was an educational institute that was funded by the Waldenses. They were a religious group that had broken away from the Catholic Church a long time previous to this. And his family were Waldenses. In fact, Gustavo's grandfather was the head of the Waldense Church. So during the growth period of this young man, they moved over to San Giovanni, Italy, and his mother had a profound impact on him during this time as World War II ramped up, and it significantly impacted Italy. She realized that there was going to be a very great need for doctors. So she very heavily influenced Gustavo to become a doctor. And of course, if any of you have had a, well, we all have had a mother. You know, when your mother tells you something, you pay attention. So it was that he got that idea in his head at an early age. Just after the war, 1948, he applied and was accepted at the University of Turin in Italy, where he began his studies to become a medical doctor. Now, ironically, that year, Dr. Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin, made a visit to the University of Turin and gave a lecture there. And Gustavo got to hear it. And one of the things that impressed Gustavo was the fact that Dr. Fleming insisted that his discovery of penicillin was a complete accident. He just wasn't looking for penicillin. He stumbled onto it. And this, of course, stuck in his mind because he thought to himself, wow, if this momentous discovery could be an accident, what other things could become an accident? Well, he graduated in 1952, and his studies had to then move him on to Genova, where he would do a 4-year residency. Now, unfortunately, during this time period, he found out that his mother had contracted cancer. She developed terminal ovarian cancer. And this was quite stressful for him. Her physician couldn't offer anything. She died in agony. And this experience drove him in his research for many years to come. Now, he had dreamed of going to the United States for some years, but all of a sudden a break came about in 1956 when one of the researchers he was working with said that he had an invitation to transmit some information over to Indiana in the United States, and he asked if Giovanni or Gustavo, excuse me, could bring the information. And so it was that they worked out a deal where he could do a residency right there at the Indiana University in Indiana. And he very much impressed his associates there. But unfortunately, toward the end of his tenure there, he stayed about 4 years there, it was unfortunately decided by the United States government that doctors would not be welcomed. I should say not welcome, but their license would not be recognized from other countries. And so he was dismally aware of the fact he was going to have to go back to Italy. But then at the last minute, the supervisor at the Indiana University Medical Center contacted someone up in Montreal at McGill University and really raved about this young man, how intelligent and how good he was in research. And so they invited him to go from Indiana up to Canada. And so it was in 1960 he began to work at McGill University. And what a shame. The United States lost a brilliant mind. In fact, I think Gustavo's been recognized as one of the top 30 scientists in the history of Canada. And yet we were just not willing to keep him here in the United States. Well, over the next several years, he distinguished himself as a researcher. He worked on something called hemorrhagic shock. He was able to publish on it. He won the medal of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons in 1965. Now, what was unusual about that is that no non-Canadian had ever been given that distinction or had ever won that award. He became a career investigator of the Medical Research Council and then a lifetime member of the Research Council within a short period of time. And he began to focus on nutritional research. During the years of 1970 to 72, he worked on something called the elemental diet. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's what's used when someone is in a coma and they can't eat. And so it is that they're tube fed this elemental diet. And pretty much that is used universally around the world now in almost every hospital in the world. So he had a great impact. But I got to tell you, when I met Gustavo, he was in his late 60s, or around 70. Excuse me. He told me that he was going to work on something that would make everything else pale into insignificance from his standpoint. So it was not surprising that he became recognized as a pioneer in nutrition. And in the year 1977, 78, he began to do research on proteins. Now, he actually filled out forms and was given a grant by the Canadian government, and they funded this research. And he soon began to feed laboratory mice with different types of proteins from all over the world. His goal was to find the perfect protein. Now, he actually probably had his mother in mind when this occurred, because his mother in late stage cancer really couldn't absorb protein very easily. In fact, late stage cancer patients sometimes go into what's called a wasting syndrome or cachexia. Their body begins to strip the muscle off the bone. So he wanted to find a protein that would be so easy to assimilate that it could help cancer patients. Well, while he was doing this research, a mysterious box arrived, and in it was an amount of protein powder. It was a white powder, and it had come from a company in Switzerland, and they enclosed a letter asking if he could research this protein and let them know if there was any commercial value to it. And so it was that just a fluke happenstance, he found a protein that would impact eventually millions of people. And so it was that he began to feed another group of mice this protein. Well, I could go on for quite a period of time about what ensued, but bottom line was he found that the mice in that group had extraordinary benefits from this protein. They didn't seem to get sick. They had more energy. And after some months on this, he found out that it was affecting their longevity. And after a couple of years, he found out they weren't dying like the other groups. They were outliving all of the other control groups. And not by just a little bit. We're talking 30, 40, 50% longer. I mean, this was a major thing that got him excited. And of course, I guess it would get anyone excited, right? If I told you I had a magical white powder, if you ate it every day, you could live 30 or 40 or 50% longer. That would get you excited too, wouldn't it? To help him with this research, he asked Dr. Patricia Kongshaven to assist him. Now, Patricia was the first PhD of immunology in Canada. And so they began working together. She was able to show through these clinical studies that the protein was having an impact on the immune function of these animals. Ironically, they still didn't know exactly what was causing the effect. And it was over a chance meeting at a coffee break with Gerald Batiste. Of course, Gerald was a lot younger than this picture. He was musing over the fact that amazing things were happening with these mice because of this protein, but he wasn't sure what the mechanism was. And it was Gerald who came up with the idea. He says, I'm doing a research article on glutathione. I wonder if there's something in this protein that is elevating glutathione. Well, says, I never thought of glutathione. Let's test it out. Well, they had the equipment to do it at McGill. And sure enough, they found that the mice that were eating this protein, they had very high levels of glutathione, and the other mice had much lower levels. So that's how it was. It was an accidental discovery that he stumbled onto. Now I'm going to enhance a video. I filmed Dr. Bunos. I guess it's about 24 years ago, and he'll tell you in his own words just how much of an accident it was. So let's listen in.
When I began my research study on the effect of whey protein concentrate in mice, that's the animal we were using for, I did not expect to stumble on the role of glutathione. What we did, in fact, we observed accidentally that mice eating this type of protein were able to mount a stronger immune response when challenged with bacteria, antigen, or cancer. But then later on we observed that these animals, in fact, were able to synthesize glutathione more effectively than the control animal. And then, of course, we had to find out what was the role of glutathione, and that we took advantage of the enormous and abundant data from the medical literature on the function of glutathione.
So obviously, this had an impact on me. I was a much younger man, of course, and I sat there in Gustavo's office for a couple of days, asking him questions about his research on glutathione. And what impressed me was his humility in admitting that this was an accidental discovery, but of incredible import. So it's ironic, but I was able to that very weekend meet a number of other principals of the then newly formed company, Immunotech Research Limited. So to get back to Dr. Bunos's discovery, one of the requirements of him being funded by the Canadian government is that he would have to publish his discoveries in peer-reviewed journals. And so that's why studies like this one showed up. The influence of dietary whey protein on tissue glutathione and the diseases of aging. And it was here that he reported that the mice on this protein were living between 30 and 50% longer. And of course, this now was able to be accessed by scientists all over the world. Then with Patricia's help, he was able to show the immuno-enhancing properties of this dietary whey protein and the role of glutathione with the immune system. Now, it was at this point that he had given a name to this protein. He called it Immunocal, and he explained to me that, well, it affected the immune system and it had some calories. So that's how he came up with the word Immunocal. Although it's not a lot of calories, it's like 40 calories to a pouch of Immunocal. Now, during the 80s, his research kind of developed to the point where he wanted to find out if it could affect HIV positive individuals. And you may recall that scientists all over the world were trying to find out if there was anything that could help with this incredible explosion of disease called HIV and AIDS. Well, sure enough, he found out that it absolutely helped. It helped to the point where the Canadian government approved human studies to be done now. So it wasn't just cells or animals, it was humans. And this got the attention of major scientists such as Dr. Luc Montagnier. He won the Nobel Prize for discovering the HIV virus in the first place. And in his book, Oxidative Stress in Cancer, AIDS, and Neurodegenerative Diseases, he actually put an entire chapter on Immunocal, not glutathione, Immunocal. And so it was that more and more scientists were taking note about this discovery. Well, I often wonder what would have happened if Dr. Bunos had not met Dieter Beer. Because let's face it, Gustavo was a superb scientist, but business-wise, he probably couldn't sell ice to an Eskimo. He had to retire from McGill University around 1988 because of age. And they shut down the whole program. So he wanted to continue, but just exactly how, he wasn't sure. And in trying to rent a facility there, he bumped into Dieter Beer. Now, Dieter had quite a bit of property in Montreal. Dieter had retired from a successful business in Europe. He was the distributor of Sony and AWA and other, he was an exclusive distributor of these electronic products, and had made a good fortune with it. He had intended to retire and just basically have some real estate projects fund his retirement. Well, then he bumped into Gustavo, and boy, it turned his life upside down, because Dieter now realized he was going to have to come out of retirement. This was such an impressive science and product that he felt everybody needed to hear about it. But he realized that he would have to get it to a point where it would be protected, would have patents. So for the next 7 or 8 years, that's what he and Dr. Bunos did. And I could go on for an hour or two about what Dieter did to get that done. And there were 5 pharmaceutical patents that were achieved during this period with a great expense. Probably $10 million was spent on getting this done. And it was not an easy task. A lot of things could have blocked this discovery from ever coming to market. Well, Dieter, in fact, Dieter has a book about how it all happened. I'd make it recommended reading for if you want to find out more of the details. But Dieter had first of all gone to a drug company and tried to go through a medical route, but these companies were pushing back, saying that, this is too expensive a product. We make things for pennies that we sell for dollars. So he really wasn't getting anywhere. Fortuitously, his attorney, Alex Konigsberg, said, I want to introduce you to another one of my clients. His name is Chuck Roberts. Well, Chuck is in distribution. Maybe the two of you should meet. And sure enough, they all met. And in 1996, when Chuck heard from Dieter Beer and Gustavo Bunos about the immense benefits of this protein, Chuck had another distribution company called Evergreen, and he told Dieter, he said, Dieter, I'm so impressed with what you're telling me, I'd be willing to dump all of my products and just represent Immunocal. Well, that's what Dieter wanted to hear, so they shook hands and they formed Immunotech Research Limited in 1996. Now, that could have been the end of the story, except that there would be thousands and then tens of thousands and then hundreds of thousands of people that would start to work along with this company over the years. And one of the early ones was Dr. Jimmy Gutman. In 1997, he became aware of Immunotech. Hadi Megdadi slapped a few hundred pages of clinical studies on his desk and said, "You need to read this." Dr. Gutman said it kind of messed up his life for months. He kept reading about it, and it really changed his life. He is now, of course, the chief science officer at Immunotech and is considered the most prolific author on the subject of glutathione in the world. And that first weekend that I went up there in 1998, I got to meet all of these folks. And I got to tell you that really the icing on the cake was ultimately meeting Dr. Wolf Droga. Around the year 2000, he began to commiserate with Dr. Bunos. He was probably the preeminent immunologist in the world at the time and headed up the Department of Immunochemistry at the Heidelberg Institute in Germany. Published hundreds and hundreds of pages of articles, was instrumental in discovering redox, and was affiliated with Harvard, the Basel Institute, University of Freiburg, the Max Planck Institute, McGill. And he left Germany and moved to Montreal to work with Dr. Bunos. And together they were able to develop the Immunocal Platinum by the year 2004. But you know, there's businesses and there's businesses, but what impacted me, I think, was not so much the business model, it was the people. You know, I had a chance to meet Dieter Beer that first weekend. He turns out was an avid amateur photographer. I was a professional photographer. We hit it off, and it began a friendship that's lasted over the years. I became very close to Chuck Roberts and learned a lot from him. Chuck, of course, had developed Descent Ski Wear, one of the elite ski wear companies in the world. He came out of retirement to help get Immunotech going for many years. Of course, Dr. Jimmy Gutman and I began to travel around North America and did countless meetings together in the early days to stimulate knowledge in people and get them acquainted with glutathione. John Molson. John has been indefatigable when it comes to researching glutathione and has been a big influence and a help. And he continues to do so. But of course, the pioneer, Dr. Gustavo Bunos, really is the one that helped get it off to a running start. Right toward the turn of the century, Dr. Alan Summersall became acquainted, and together the two of them wrote the book, Breakthrough in Cell Defense. And that was a book I would also suggest is a part of your required reading if you get involved with Immunotech. People like Patricia Kong-Shavin and Dr. Gutman have kept this research at a cutting edge. And that's why I'm with the company. So it's been a remarkable period of time for me, but the information is ongoing because by the year 2017, Chuck and Dieter retired, and this young man came along, Mauricio Domenzine, and he was able to take the helm, and the reins of the company. And there's been an explosion of business since he did. In fact, the company is probably quadrupled in size. And we went from a handful of countries to about 14 different countries in the last 5 years. So really the amount of growth that is ahead of us really will be spectacular. So to give you a little rundown on the development of Immunocal, the original Immunocal was released in 1996 for human consumption. In 2004, the Platinum was released. And then in 2022, the Immunocal Sport. Now, what's the difference between these three? Well, the same amount of regular Immunocal is in all three. So really all of the clinical studies that have been done can really be used for these two because the same amount is in all three. But there's two extra formulas in the Platinum. There's a cytokine modulating protein, which has some remarkable anti-inflammatory benefits. It's got the redox formula that Dr. Droga developed, which helps reset redox. It's like getting younger cells. There's not a product like it in the world. And the Sport, which helps recovery of physical exercise, and it's being well received by elite athletes and people that are really well into exercise. When I got started with the company, there was only 18 clinical studies published. Now it's over 86. There was 5 patents. Now there's over 78. And it was the first natural product to be permitted into the pages of the Physician's Desk Reference and the Canadian equivalent, the CPS. It's been approved for all sports by the informed choice folks. And so it's approved by these folks that check for banned substances. It's been given many awards for purity. There's even a kosher variety for our Jewish friends. Now, one of the real benefits of being in the PDR is it allows the doctors to have access to what it can do. And here's an excerpt from the PDR. It says Immunocal is a U.S. patented natural food protein isolate in the FDA category of GRAS. That means generally recognized as safe, which assists the body in maintaining optimal concentrations of glutathione by supplying the precursors required for intracellular glutathione synthesis. It's clinically proven to raise glutathione values. Now, that's an important distinction. There's a lot of people trying to get on the glutathione bandwagon, so to speak, today. They say, oh, drink this glutathione or this other product, take this pill. But when it comes to eating glutathione or drinking glutathione, it really doesn't work near as well as a glutathione precursor. And that's why Immunocal is so spectacular. It allows the body to make glutathione in each of the cells, whereas extracellular glutathione is what the injectable form and these other forms allow. Now, why do we need glutathione? Well, again, I could keep you here for hours, but because of time limitations, suffice it to say that every day we're exposed to different types of dangers. There's carcinogenic material in our food. There's heavy metals like mercury, lead, cadmium. We're exposed to car exhaust, secondhand cigarette smoke, radiation, just even from the sun, ultraviolet, X-rays, alpha, beta, gamma. So glutathione has the ability to protect. Now, when I first met Dr. Bunos, there wasn't very much information on glutathione. Now, there's over 180,000 published medical and scientific papers. You can get that in the National Library of Medicine. You can go to pubmed.gov. You'll stay there for the rest of your life reading papers on it. It's just overwhelming. And just this year, I did a breakdown and found that there's tens of thousands of articles just on glutathione in the liver and cancer in the brain, but thousands of articles on what it does for the brain, the heart, diabetes, epilepsy, lung diseases, kidney disease, the eyes, Parkinson's, autoimmune, multiple sclerosis, hearing. There's even several hundred articles on glutathione and COVID-19. So the research is just exploding. There's about 500 to 1,000 new papers being published really every single month. I don't think you're going to be able to keep up with it at this point. Now, if you want to remember the basics, remember the word IDEA as an acronym. The I stands for immune system function. And it's been proven through this research that your immune system really needs glutathione to function properly. So that's the letter I. The letter D stands for detoxification. And that's another benefit. Because there's so much glutathione produced in the liver, the body is able to get rid of all of these toxic substances we're exposed to. The E stands for energy. And that's why a lot of people say during the first few days, week or so that they are using Immunocal, that they feel so energized. Well, the mitochondria is working more efficiently. And then finally, the A, really it has two benefits to the A. It's antioxidant, most potent antioxidant in the body, and it helps to modulate all the other antioxidants, and it's anti-aging. Because obviously, if you slow down the oxidation in the cell, all of the body is benefited. Now, the research shows that these 3 amino acids have to be simultaneously in the bloodstream: glutamate, cysteine, and glycine. But the critical one is cysteine, because glutamate, glycine are so prolific in our diets. Cysteine is not, and it's very hard to get it. And that's what makes Immunocal such a wonderful benefit. It has a unique form of cysteine. It's bonded. It has extra protection. It doesn't break down in the stomach. It goes right into the bloodstream. And now your body is able to, at the cellular level, make more glutathione. Another benefit, and this is, again, something that we've seen from more and more research, cysteine is a required amino acid for muscle synthesis. So very early on, some of the studies done, for instance, this one done by Dr. Larry Lands at McGill, they found that even young people in their 20s had a substantial increase in glutathione. In 90 days, their glutathione levels went up 30 to 35%, but it also affected their muscle. Their muscle performance went up between 12 and 15%. Now, I got to tell you, if you tell that to an athlete, they're going to fall all over themselves trying to get this product. We revisited this years later with a group of elderly folks between the ages of 66 and 88 years of age. And what happened? Well, they had a 10% increase in muscle strength within 4 months. Now, why is that so spectacular? Well, it takes about 10 years to lose 10% of your muscle. They got back that muscle strength in 4 months. So you got to ask yourself, who is not going to want to have this? And that's why there's Olympic champions that are really very favorably responding to Immunocal. They really don't want to do without it. There's entire sports teams that are now using it with great benefit. And all of you have an advantage that I didn't have. There was only one product when I started with the company, but of course I was very happy with that product. I wasn't saddened that we didn't have a lot of products, but now we have 15 to 20 products that you could each build a business with. And yet these are exclusive type products that are all science-based. It gives you an opportunity to really have the best of the best. And so whether you're an Immunotech customer or an Immunotech distributor or consultant, you've got access to some of the best products in the world. And that is why we keep it that way. We only make these products available through our independent consultants. You can't find them in a store. You're not going to see it advertised in magazines or on television or radio. We're the advertisement. And that's the way it's been since the founders set it up. We use the products ourselves. We fall in love with them. We share it with other people. Now, the question I have for you folks today is, what are you going to do with this information? Obviously, we have time restraints, so we're not going to be able to talk very much more about this, but will you just keep this information to yourself, or will you share it with your close friends and your neighbors, and then thereafter with other people? That is the question. Well, that concludes my part of this program. And again, I want to thank all of you for being with us. We have continuing educational programs that are done on a weekly basis in multiple languages. So you're invited to get together with the person that invited you on the call tonight. Ask them how you can get involved. Ask them how you can get started. They'll answer your questions. They'll help you get access to the products. And we hope to see you at some point in the near future.